Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Chetna and we talk about data, product and analytics, and this is my data world. And today we are going to talk about guardrails for AI agents and LLMs in general, and we talk about how we can implement different types of guardrails using the CrewAI framework. So let's get started. So, what are guardrails? We talk about them very often, but we need to have a good definition so that we can understand how they're going to help us when we implement our solutions using LLMs. Um, LLMs, as you know, are very probabilistic in nature, which means that they are basically trying to predict the next word after each and every word. And this means that out of the multiple possibilities, at any point in time, they can pick any next word. So each time you are trying to call the LLM for the same question or for the same prompt, you might expect variable answers. And why this could be sometimes not so optimal is because, let's say, you're trying to work on some sensitive applications where you're supposed to, let's say, avoid certain terminology, or let's say you want to avoid harmful content or something like that. You need to make sure that the AI agents know what to avoid or what to definitely follow. And this is where your guardrails come into picture. So a guardrail is basically, think of it as a function that kind of checks the output of LLMs and gives you a response of whether they have followed that particular guardrail rule or not. Now, remember, most ideally, guardrails are expected to be deterministic, which means they have to give a definite yes or a no, but they cannot give you a probable answer, because guardrails are meant to enforce certain rules on AI. So they have to be enforced. For this reason, guardrails are more of defined functions, and not really calling LLMs, because again, you are calling a probabilistic model, which may or may not give the right answer, right? So let's see how guardrails work with a few examples. So in this example, I am creating a multi-agent system, one which contains a researcher and a writer, and they have the task of doing the research on a particular topic and then writing a LinkedIn professional article, right? So that's the task, and then I'm going to create the crew and run it. But then I am also defining guardrails for each of these tasks. I, of course, will be showing you how to use the standard hallucination guardrail that comes with CrewAI's tasks. You just have to import it from crewai.tasks.hallucination underscore guardrail. And then I've also created a custom guardrail to do certain other validations. Let's take a look at that. I have defined my LLM through Grok. I'm going to use Grok because that speeds up LLM inferences, especially for the open source ones. So I'm going to use Llama 3.3, and this is how I'm calling my LLM. I'm going to define my hallucination guardrail. But remember, when you want to create a hallucination guardrail, you need to give a ground truth or the context off of which the LLM's output is going to be compared. And I have defined my context in context.py here. This is just a huge chunk of text, which I have named as context, and I have imported it here. If I have to change the setup, then I can just go ahead and change the context in context.py, right? It's as simple as that. And then I have also created a custom guardrail called validate word count. I know you must be super bored of this guardrail. I've just used it so that you can see what it can do and cannot do. Because I also wanted to show you an instance where you can add multiple guardrails in your crew. And for that, I'm just using this as an example. So pardon me for that. So I am going to ask the model to make sure that the output is no more than 200 words. Point to remember here is custom guardrails in CrewAI take in a task output object and then give out a tuple, which contains of a boolean and whatever output, right? So we should always make sure that the kind of result that we give has either a true or a false kind of output. So if you see here, I took the result text, which is the task output, and of course I broke it down into the number of words. And if that is less than or equal to 100, then it's fine. But if it is not, then you give a false, and then you also give a reason why. And for me, it's a validation error. So validation failed, and the output has more than 200 words. Please make it more concise. This is the kind of hint I'm going to give when the validation fails. Now, I have defined my researcher agent, my writer agent. Nothing to see here. But then I have also defined my task. You need to attach guardrails with your tasks. And in the first task, which is the research task, I have given the hallucination guardrail. And there is another argument called guardrail max retries. What this means is that when the task is performed and the first time the guardrail has failed, then how many more times is it supposed to try until it hits success? So you try once, it fails, try another time, fails, third time it fails, then the whole task fails, right? So that's how it's been designed. And then I also have the right task where I have the word limit enforced. My guardrail here is the validate word count, and again I've given it 3 maximum retries. Now I'm creating my crew where I've added the researcher and the writer as my agents, the task research and task write as my tasks, and now I'm kicking off my crew. I have run the code beforehand to show you the trace so that you can see how the guardrails are being attempted and what the output looks like. So you see here that the execution has started, and the first agent was a senior tech researcher. We, if you remember, had the hallucination guardrail attached to the research task, and you see that the guardrail evaluation has started, and this is the first attempt. You remember the guardrail retries, right? So this is the first try, not the retry, but the first try. And the agent has given a response. The guardrail passed and the validation was successful. So it does not have to do it again. So the task is completed and the final output is given to the next agent, which is the communication lead who has to write the LinkedIn post. Now, again, as you know, this one has the word count guardrail attached to it. So when the output of the communication lead comes out, it goes through the guardrail validate word count, and there is the evaluation happening. And yes, the guardrail was successful this time as well, and that's why the task now is complete. If the guardrail had failed, there would be retry number 1, number 2, and number 3, and so on. And then it would either fail if all the retries are done, or if by the time it had exhausted all its retries, the output was positive, then it would complete the task at that point. And now you can see the final output, which is here, right? So this is how you can implement either system defined guardrails like the hallucination guardrail, or build your own custom guardrails in the CrewAI framework. So that's it for today, and see you in the next video.